given that we have had a bank holiday on Monday in the UK. Therefore, we are here for the first time this week. Seem to be having some issues. I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. If that's the case, could you please let me know? It's telling me I've failed to connect. Interesting. Hi, Paul P. Hopefully you can hear me. That needs to go away. Sound okay? Awesome. We don't seem to be recording, however, which is a bit of a problem. Here we go. Record to the cloud. Sorry, guys, I just have to get this right. Otherwise, nobody may be able to see the recording. Seems I've got an issue with the cloud. It is raining here. Sorry, bad joke. Pretty good at dad jokes, right? Thank you, Lang Hoon. Okay, I'll just have to record locally, it would appear. Wow. Okay. Hopefully it's recording on my computer. We'll see how we go. Thank you, Harry. Thank you very much. Righto, let's get stuck in, shall we, and not worry about the technical things. I'll try when Ash comes in to make sure that it's all going as it should be, but they failed to connect the cloud server. I don't know why. That's a Zoom issue by the look of it. So I'll record to this computer. There we go. We're recording to the computer so we can share it with the world a little bit later. Okay, let me open up some charts here. Of course, we will start with gold. Thank you, Lang Hoon. All good. We'll start with gold in the 1 hour chart. I have been absent from the charts pretty much all week and I have to catch up a little bit on what's going on. But let's start with gold on the 1 hour as usual, see if there's a trade available for us. Range looks reasonable, although daily pivot tested price rather than the other way around. Looks like yesterday, 900 will be that one. High there, low there would have been taken in short, and he would have hit DS1 for sure. That looks like Tuesday. Is that Tuesday? No. Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. That's Tuesday. Monday. Monday would have been low there. What time's that one? 10 o'clock. High there. Would have been taken short and big problems. Would you have taken that trade, though? No, you shouldn't have. Trading into the daily pivot. Not a good plan. That one, got no idea how that candle formed, so I don't know whether it would have been taken in short and hit the take profit level. Probably. Oh, that was last Friday. Let me forget that. I'll catch up. Let's go to today. There's the beginning of the range. So the low is currently underneath this bar, the current bar. The high is currently, and that wouldn't change, I wouldn't think, the top of this bar here. Do we want to trade into DR1 and the daily pivot, whichever way we get taken? Probably not. Monthly pivot's dead ahead here as well. Risk to reward. Risk is about $4.70. Reward to there is $1. Reward to there is $3.20. Reward to there is not even $1, but down to here, it's $8. So nearly 2 to 1 to DS1. It's DR2. Would you be prepared to trade to DR2 through DR1 in the monthly pivot? I wouldn't. About 2 nil, not 1.3, 1.75 to 1. I'm not taking this, guys. It's in a pivot sandwich, so no good for me. I will pass. Gold. Let me rehash gold. I tried to take a second position on gold after we had closed the first one. Reasonable close. Good trade, that first one. Second one, I tried to trade this bar here. I did say at the time that it may well be early, and I thought that price might test this level before it went short. And that's exactly what happened. What I didn't count on was whatever happened there on, was it Friday? On Tuesday? Yes, Friday of last week. Got no idea what that was about. But there were, obviously that's a news event that went short and then long. And, of course, we were still in the trade until something happened 2 days ago, and I've got no idea what that was either. So, Ash, tell me what that was. That big bar there on Tuesday, I don't know, wasn't in front of the charts. So from here, what happens? On the daily chart, not a lot, because you can see we're just about to smash into the monthly pivot, perhaps. But if we come off there and then find our way back underneath that trade line and retest it, and I'm talking probably Thursday of next week or thereabouts, then I would look to trade it short again, pick it up short again. However, we are at a trend line, and should we get through the monthly pivot, come back and retest that confluence area, which is pretty strong because there's been support through here, resistance through here. So that level's pretty strong. Then this may well turn the trend into a bull run rather than where we have been of late in a bear run. So critical point right now where gold is, and I'll be watching that tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just to see if I can find a compelling argument either way. Righto, I've got no orders in the markets because I haven't been in front of the charts. I did try and trade pound CAD on, when was that? Tuesday, maybe? Let me go up here. Pound versus the CAD. And that was on the back of daily chart. That was on the back of this bar here, which double top, sell off, retracement not deep enough, obviously, but a nice bounce off the weekly pivot there with a high test bar. So I put my order underneath there. And of course, the market had different ideas and pound rallied once again. And the CAD failed once again. Speaking of the CAD, let's have a look at good old CAD Swissy, where yet another expired order that I placed long into the market back on actually probably last Friday and Monday and maybe even Tuesday again. Placed the order above this bar here, not because it was a genuine slingshot setup, but because I have quite a market structure here, which is very, very clear. Rejected that and gave us a base, if you like, for the descending channel. Straight back. Now we're just fooling around here doing absolutely nothing for the longest time. And I do believe eventually that we're going to bounce here and head towards the top of that range. Trying to time that, man, it's just been an incredible adventure waiting for CAD Swiss to move. Ultimately, I think just like gravity pulls something down, reverse gravity, if there's such a thing, will push this up. But my goodness, it's very, very hard to catch. Today, a couple of things caught my eye, actually. There are a stack of game changer bars that I won't really go through because there's too many of them, unless we run out of time, and unless we've got excess time and nobody has any other ideas, I will go through those. But something that caught my eye was euro pound. If I can go to that chart, not on the daily, funnily enough, but the daily is suggesting that we go short on the back of a game changer bar. And it seems that that might be flavoursome, because that last one drove the price back down to this support level. And we've had a stack of them that have done the same. Stack of game changer bars, they're all going in the same direction. Let me get rid of that. So every time we see one of these, they are driving this market down. And it's quite evident that that's the case. Is this a repeat of that? Good question. The thing that probably turns me away from that is this broadening price pattern, which suggests that we're going up here before we go down here. In either circumstance, that is already triggered and does look good at the moment, I've got to say, for euro versus the pound to go short. Iffy, very iffy for mine, given that that structure is in place and we have come off the bottom of it. So it caught my eye on the 4-hour chart because this happened. And that, to me, suggests that the game changer bar on the daily is accurate, and we do have a false break of this resistance trade line, which was tradable underneath that bar there. The only issue I had with that, or sorry, two issues. One, I think we're ultimately going long, and two, I think our support level, well, it's probably worth 0.75 to 1 or something like that. But I think that ends there, frankly. And that's why I haven't really taken that trade. But it looks full of running at the moment. And I won't be jumping into it, of course, now. But that did catch my eye earlier. Everything else was kind of okay. We had a day on Tuesday and an opposite day yesterday. Work it out, guys. That the market's telling me that I need to just keep it quiet for a bit. Big movements on dollar pairs have been, I've noticed, whilst I've been away during the week, one up, one down. And that seems to be the flavour of the day, or the flavour of the week for me. Hits resistance, goes through resistance, comes straight back to it. That's kind of a little bit confusing for me. And I'm more than happy, because it is the end of the month today, not to enter anything on a daily chart. I think the 30-minute charts are probably okay to trade, and I might have a look at those in a tick while Ash comes in. But Ash, you don't mind the end of the month, do you? It's kind of a good time for you.
Yeah, I do like it, mate. I do like it. I mean, it will sort of probably volatility is probably likely to increase, and but I do think there's opportunities towards the end of the month. In actual fact, there might be one right now. Let's see if we can get this on as quickly as possible. It's a FTSE 100 short. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
More than okay.
What's this one here? Here we go. Oh, I missed it. $73. That's okay. Right, I've taken the FTSE 100 short with, let's put the stops up here. We could have had a bit more on that. It does have to get through this level here to really do anything. You know, we'll aim for aim for a couple down here and see. It's probably this line here. I think we can aim for here. So, yeah, we'll put that on. But I like it, mate, because there is a pickup in volatility in markets, and really, you know, if you're aiming for short-term positions, you do need some volatility. If you don't get the volatility, then you are stuck in trades for too long, and it just it kind of negates the short-term strategies. You know, you really do want the market to kind of make a decision and move. So yeah, I'm in favour, mate. I like the end of the week. I like the end of the month. There's September's a really interesting one as well, and so, you know, going into September's an interesting one because September tends to have a bit of a sell-off early doors.
Who sang that song?
September has a sell-off.
Can't wait for some. Oh, hang on, I'll get in trouble if I do
this. I don't know. You'll have to tell me, mate. Who does it?
I'll look it up.
You look it up. Yeah. So and you know, so September as a bit of a sell-off. It tends to be sort of around about mid-month, but you know, there could be a little bit of volatility going into it. And considering what we do have, you know, with the environment, we've got central banks kind of coming out again, you know, going into September. We've got the end of the August cycle as well, where we have we tend to have lighter liquidity, and that lighter liquidity can also kind of drive markets. So there's a few kind of things that that make the end of this particular month, I think quite interesting and quite a useful time to trade. Just incidentally, kind of looking at this this particular trade, the reason I've gone short, I didn't really explain it, but the reason I've gone short is that there's a longer term picture here. You know, when you look at this on the dailies, there's a trend line here, and you know, it's possible that it's gone through. Let's just see if we can tighten this line up a little bit. It's there, and it's there. Oh, that didn't work out well. That's the right one there.
It was my old mate Earl Dalby.
Oh, Earl, yeah, the old Earl there.
Never heard of him.
Know him well, mate. Know him well. Yeah, so we got this particular picture here on the 4 hour, and it does look like we may well be through. So testing this level, I think looks relatively likely, possible. Maybe we should say possible, but it's really when we get to the weeklies that it becomes really interesting, because if you look at this on the week over week chart, what we really have here is a position along here. We're just testing this zone here. We're just a little bit away from that monthly pivot. So it might be that the monthly pivot kind of needs, you know, is a magnet, and it holds it to account to that point, and we might even get a test of this trend line as well. So there may well be a few things kind of going on here, but there does look like there's a few lines kind of going across. It's not really clean. But we are in a downtrend. So looking at this on a longer term picture, it looks like we are in a move to the downside. And looking at it on the daily, you can see that it's a little bit cleaner when we see this. That was the support line, and now we've just tested that support line. Yesterday's bar looked pretty negative, so looks like we could get a run back down again. We'll pull up a little fib as well, mate, and see what that looks like. Yeah, you see, we haven't even really tested any Fibonacci levels yet. So 23% retracement brings us right into that take profit area. That's not why I picked it, but I quite like the fact there's some confluence there. And if we look at it on the 15, I think it becomes a little bit clearer. Actually, let's look at it on the hourly. It becomes a bit clearer why I've picked that particular level. It might be this one here, but if it can form some sort of base here, and if it's going to form a reversal pattern, then it will probably be from this particular point here, because it will start looking like a pretty scruffy looking head and shoulders. And talking of head and shoulders, same sort of thing. I've taken a short position also in the Nasdaq, And if we look at this on the Nasdaq, and I didn't call this one because this was from yesterday. If we look at this one on the Nasdaq, this is
It's been a bit of a roller coaster too the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, the bond market has really kind of driven this one quite significantly. But we look at it again on this. This would also look like a potential for a head and shoulders pattern, maybe coming into this area here. So that's going to be kind of first target. Now, of course, if that does form an inverted, a head and shoulders, that's going to drive it down, drive it up, and then if it plays out, then there's this whole area here that it could break down again, which doesn't look huge, but oh, I'm breaking that off now. It's going to be this here. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so it brings us in somewhere around here for the measured move. But I think really looking at this, it's much more likely to go a bit lower. Yeah, that's another reason. Look at that trend line there. Another reason that I don't think kind of aiming too far beyond this particular zone here at 15,330, 15,340 will be too wise. So yeah, a couple of shorts in. And talking of some of the potential drivers for the short.
Yeah, what's been going on during the week? I've been kind of absent from the charts.
Well, it's been quite interesting because I think some of the data from the US has showed a bit of a slowdown, which is why I quite like the FTSE. I prefer the FTSE to the Nasdaq because the Nasdaq's had a bump from some of that data. You know, the Nasdaq will get a bump on bad news because then there's the anticipation of a pause or even lower interest rates kind of coming in. So the FTSE's much more likely to be kind of affected by a slowdown globally. Because it's kind of much more commodity driven and service driven in the banking sector. So the lower GDP print from the US, you know, it came in around about 2%. We've also had lower jobs openings, which may be a bit misleading. Does suggest that, and we've had lots of European PMIs come out, which also suggests that that there is some weakening going on. But inflation is still sticky in the Eurozone. We've got inflation data out today at 10 o'clock. I wouldn't mind being out of that trade by 10 if I could, or at least being sort of far enough in profit that things can go to break even to see then if inflation data it comes in hot, and then maybe we get some follow through even in this this particular trade. So I'm looking just for a little bit of weakness going into that number. That's around about an hour and a half away. But US jobs data as well tomorrow. You know, there's a bit of inflation data from the US today. I think we might be sort of aiming for this potential situation where inflation has decreased, but it's still uncomfortably high, you know, 3 to 5%. But we're getting this slowdown, so it becomes a lot trickier towards the end of the cycle to fight it. And at some point, maybe bad news will actually be perceived as bad for the stock market. And we do see the stock market coming down because it's a strange thing, you know, where bad news is good for the stock market. It's a bit of an anomaly, but that's because of expectations and anticipation that they're going to get some relief. You know, the stock traders are going to get some relief, and companies will get some relief from some Fed action. So yeah, but we're dynamic, mate. Very, very, very strange. But as I say, September starting, as you know, usually sort of relatively volatile, more money coming back into the market, maybe seeing some sell-off coming in. That's one of the things that I'm playing here as well.
Yep, cool. As far as what I've noticed since I have been in front of the charts in the last half hour or so, I noticed one thing, and that was the CAD, the Kiwi, and the Aussie have an interesting interplay going on, where the CAD, should I say finally, probably finally, has gained a little bit of favour over the other two COMDOLs.
Yeah.
So, seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Reason? Is there a reason for it, or is it just the market doing what the market does?
The one reason I would point to is that the slowdown in China in that particular area is quite significant. Where we're not really seeing that in kind of North America and you know the kind of the America bloc. generally speaking. America's GDP at 2% actually is weaker than expected, I think, from prior, but it's in and around where it has been, quarter on quarter. So there's nowhere near the same issues in that particular region as there has been in China, even though some PMIs did actually improve from China recently. So only very, very slightly. But I think it's a geographical thing. That's what I would kind of put on as a possibility straight away. That would be my first thoughts initially. That is probably a geographical aspect going on, because I have looked at the Aussie and we're not getting a whole bunch of the Aussie's an interesting one against the dollar today, because we had yesterday's bar, and we also we look at this 4-hour bar here, suggesting that we could see some downside here. So the dollar has been back and forth, seasonally strong, but weak data from the US has kind of pushed that dollar down. If it's going to rally against anything, the Aussie doesn't look like a bad shout in many respects. Weaker global data does not feed into the Aussie or the CAD or the Kiwi, to be fair. But the Aussie and the Kiwi, maybe because of the geographical location of them, maybe could suffer more. But the Aussie does look a little bit on edge today. And if we can see here on the hourly, it has broken through a little trend line here. So there might be some weakness coming into play soon.
Yeah, there's not a lot of confidence around the commentators in Australia at the moment, I've got to say.
Yeah,
we're talking, not really doom and gloom, but they're all expecting, and sentiment around the place seems to be a little bit on the downside, and not 100% why, but that seems to be I guess it's China.
Yeah, I think it's China. I think sticky inflation isn't helping either, and I wonder whether the pause that they're coming in with is not because they think that they're beating inflation. I think that they are genuinely worried that the problem shifts to a kind of global contraction and picking up pace, because the soft landing, that narrative that has been bandied around about the US economy, that has been relatively well shielded so far, amazingly, it's just losing a little bit of potency. And I think that looking at 2024, we may well have another difficult year for economic growth ahead of us, because as I say, I don't know whether the inflation narrative really disappears in the way that they would like it to over the next few months. I think the last few percent is going to be quite a bit of a grind, which really kind of that shoves the spotlight on gold. Gold has had an amazing run from the lower end here, a bit of a V-shaped recovery going on, stuck at the monthly pivot, but and stuck at this trend line as well, actually. But it looks pretty good, gold for another move higher.
I think it's at a crucial point now in terms of which direction is next, because of I've got a support trend line and a resistance trend line clashing pretty much on that monthly pivot, or very close to it. So I think in the next couple of days, the fate, or the short-term fate, of gold will be known. Yeah.
This looks a bit negative, mate, but I think the bulls are going to come in. And anything over this 1960 area, the bulls are going to start coming in and looking to push this one higher. But if inflation is to stick around, then commodities really is a popular place to be. And it did get a pretty nice bounce off this area here, but it looks like there's some resistance potentially coming in right now.
That's the clash.
Yeah, it's going to need to get through.
Interestingly, that would actually negate the Australian story that we've just discussed, because the Australian dollar will pretty much follow that, one would think, if it does go long. Because it does, it tracks it very well.
Right.
It's what it does. Right. But with the interesting one with the RBA's got a new governor as of, I'm not sure if it's this meeting on Tuesday or the next one. First time a female as well.
All right.
Any significance?
Oh, I don't know, mate. Do you know what? I don't know too much about the Australian central bank. than the central banking system. I mean, the fact that it's a woman, I wouldn't have thought would have very little significance. It'd be interesting to know what kind of background she has. Whether she tends to be more dovish or more hawkish. Things like that are usually quite useful to know, because you'll get a feel of how she may vote. If you kind of have a look at where she's kind of laid her cards, prior to
yeah, well, she's been the deputy, so she's obviously been on the board,
right.
So yes, you should be able to track that. That might be worth looking at.
Yeah, that would be worth looking at. And what kind of economic environment does she tend to kind of, because she might well be somebody that is relatively clear to see. She tends to be a dove or she tends to be a hawk, but she might be sort of somewhere in between. And then you'd have to track what kind of economic environment she tends to react in, because they do tend to hold form, these central bankers.
Euro pound. Well, I just had a look at Euro pound and looked short, or maybe on a 30-minute chart, short.
Yeah.
But to me, bigger picture, probably a buy. Thoughts?
Not so sure, actually, mate. I think there might still be some selling here. The ECB have now come out and quite happily thrown the cards on the table that there could be a pause, the next meeting. We've got CPIs today, which are going to be sort of like quite telling. There's the yeah, I mean, I see a long kind of here on a 4-hour. We are in a buy zone down here, so there's a potential long here. But the CPI data, it depends on how extreme it is, but it really could shape, what happens to the euro over the course of the next few weeks. But as I say, ECB are showing some concern on the rate cycle, and starting to intimate that there might well be a pause in interest rates because they are worried about growth. That they and now if you want to sort of like see a dovish kind of central bank, the ECB is the archetypal dovish central bank. They hate raising interest rates. They really do not like it at all because of the broad dynamic of the euro bloc, the eurozone. So if inflation does look like it's stepping down again, then yes, the short is on, and that's going to be in the next hour and a half. So it looks now, you sort of look at this as we kind of like sit in this right now, a little bit of a boost to the downside, but we're just about to kind of pause there potentially, and possibly go back up again. But this looks a little bit trapped. It doesn't look like anybody sort of as yet really sort of like nailing their colours to the mast. So I wonder whether we need that inflation data before we can get a genuine feel. But really, I think we're edging on the side of the selling opportunity because of the way the ECB's painted it. The ECB have sort of effectively said, please, give us some data to allow us to pause. So if the data comes out on the weak side on inflation, then I think the euro will sell off.
Yeah, look, did pretty much exactly as we anticipated that it might. If you go to the daily chart, was in a beautiful buying area on what was the last Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday.
Down here, was it?
Yeah. On the daily chart, I've got a massive trend line coming. It's actually in a channel. If you go to the weekly, actually, you probably see it a lot easier.
Yeah, I see it.
Bang on the bottom of the channel. Go. There's another one going the other way, a bigger one.
This one here?
No. Are you on the weekly? Oh, you're on Euro pound. Sorry, I'm talking about the euro. I'm talking about the euro.
Oh, sorry.
You're talking about the ECB, so I just jumped straight to the euro.
Yeah, the euro dollar is an interesting one. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, this one here.
Yeah. We flagged that on Monday, and wow. it looks pretty keen. But if news goes in the opposite way with the ECB, then obviously that's not going to continue. But if it does, that could well be headed to the top of that channel, which is a fair way off.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Well, the economic data that's coming out of the US has all been, I haven't really seen anything that would suggest that that positivity is kind of coming through. We have seen kind of bonds kind of get bought up again, so the yield has come down on some of those Treasury bills as well, which is suggesting that that there is some dollar weakness coming into play. But it's just the fact that I haven't got the DXY on this one, but it's just the fact that the things can change relatively quickly, and I don't think we've had any of the real big numbers just yet. But the incidental numbers could be sort of like pointing towards some of those consequential numbers actually showing some some further disinflation. The US has had a pretty good shout of fighting inflation actually. And if anywhere could maybe get down to nearer 2%, it may well be the US. They're floating around about the 3% mark, but they've been strangely resilient considering the rest of the world dynamic. Considering the kind of globalization aspect of the market, they've been strangely resilient. So I guess things may well change, and they may well. Things may well still be a little bit sticky. The labour market continues to be strong. Few numbers which suggest there could be some weakening coming through. GDP is sort of, getting a little bit more tepid. PMIs are showing some weakness as well in the US. So there are some weaker numbers coming from there, which has really kind of like boosted the anything against the dollar over the last few sessions has been a kind of reaction to some of those numbers. But this is currently retracing, but those CPIs come out strong, we're going to get another boost to the upside. If they come out a bit more tepid or a bit weaker, then we may well see this right down to the weekly pivot and maybe below. Might be trend continuation, because when you look at this on a weekly, it looks like we are in a little bit of in a bit of a zone here. Look at this on the horizontal level. Looks like there's one right on top of where we are. So this one may well just kind of decide to drift again to the downside. And I mean that channel was bang on. It was perfect, wasn't it?
Absolutely. But interestingly, on the dollar index, I've got exactly the same chart pattern as I do on euro dollar, and they both can't go in this. They both can't go in the same direction. Right.
That is interesting. Yeah. I had a little look at the dollar as well, mate, and I thought the same thing. I thought it won't take a lot for this to turn. The hints maybe and indications that the dollar could start to weaken a bit more significantly, but I don't think it's going to take a lot, because Jackson Hole was really about rates higher for longer. The Fed's narrative is a lot more aggressive than the ECB's, but the data's not been, and I suppose that's why we're sort of like starting to see the dollar weaken. But I don't think it's going to take a lot. If data flips again in favor of further rate hikes, then that will just play into what we've been hearing really from Jerome Powell, and I think that the euro, and maybe not the pound, but the euro, the Aussie, the Kiwi, maybe the CAD even. Could take another leg down. CAD's an interesting one, and I saw you looking at the CAD Swiss. Yet again, it's kind of clung on, isn't it? The CAD Swiss.
Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
To another another bounce off in and around these lower levels, and we've started to look to for further upside. But such a difficult one to kind of get on board. I think
absolutely.
I think telling that it's holding. It could be where it could really be sort of sending a message that it keeps holding, drives down aggressively, and then it holds and drives back up again. But it's a horrible area, really is. I don't know how long this has been going on, really since the start of the month. Well, actually, you could put it right the way back to July. For the last 2 months, we were in a horrible area. Yes, we're in the lower end of that band, but boosting up to around about the monthly pivot, I think looks potentially on as well. But it's a horrible chart, really.
Mate, I'm just going to duck off for 2 seconds.
Yeah, no problem at all. So while Jeff is doing that, let's have a quick look at the FTSE and see what's going on here. No, it doesn't look like it's moved too much here. This in the 5. Oh yeah, that's not so good. That doesn't look quite as healthy actually. Let's just check it on all these time frames here. It might be worth. Might be worth closing that. What's going on there? Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. This is the FTSE. Where's the FTSE? We'll close down the one on the US 500. But yeah, let's have a look at this on the FTSE. The FTSE actually still looks okay, I think. Yeah, that looks all right. FTSE looks all right. Just the this would need to kind of end up down here really for me to be still interested in holding on to this. But we'll see. We'll ignore it for a little while. Let's have another look through and see what else there is out there. Checking all the others and looking at the pound. Pound similar, I suppose, to that euro, where this is at the top end of the range. And actually, you know, if the euro is going to boost, it wouldn't be a bad one to kind of look for that pound euro as a potential opportunity. Right on top of this trend line as well. Scruffy looking head and shoulders pattern. It might be getting a little bit long in the tooth there, but pound against the dollar looks like we may well see a little bit of selling possibly coming in. I have to say the market over the last 2 days, a little bit of a boost yesterday, which is pretty good, but the market over the last couple of days, I found it to be quite difficult. And I wonder whether we might be kind of heading into one of those difficult zones, which is why, you know, I'm quite happy to cut positions quite early in this kind of environment, because you could get caught in something that just doesn't move. You know, similar to what we've seen over a long term with the CAD Swiss, where you're caught in trades, they don't move, you're stuck in it. Not too bad with CAD Swiss long, because you should get positive swaps. But if you're not getting positive swaps, because not all brokers will pay that, then you start getting caught in trades that you just don't want to be in. And I, you know, I think there's a lot to be said for cutting positions and coming back when things are a little bit clearer. The first 2 15-minute bars here, this and this, and now this, just looks like it dipped a range and now it's back in the range. That's indicative of a difficult market there. So I'm going to keep my eye on that FTSE trade, mate, because I wonder whether we might just be in a bit of a zone. I was just saying we might be in a bit of a situation where we don't get the movement straight from the open, and I don't like markets like that. I like to see some move. I like to see where the liquidity is and when it comes into play. I think it's much more likely that we actually finish this hour, then we might start to get a bit of movement into that ECB meeting and into those Eurozone numbers in around about an hour. So it might not be the best environment to be looking for some movement in in this first hour. As you
know, I won't trade the first half hour candle of London session. I'd like to, but it's just burnt me so many times. Where I'm expecting A to happen and B happens before A. Yeah. And you just
look at this.
Sometimes it just catches you on the fly.
Well, look at this FTSE. See, I mean, you know, we're trading this trend line here, poking back above the trend line. If this stays there, I'm not hanging around. You know, I'm not interested in trades like that. I really like to kind of pick an area and it do what I foresee, I suppose. You know, what I anticipate. Not interested. You know, this has to close under this level for me to hold this position. Let me just check it on the 5. Yeah, see, that's no good for me. I know it's at the daily pivot, but that wasn't my area. So I'm closing that off, mate. I'm not interested in holding on to that. I prefer to kind of see whether these particular trades actually take hold and or close them and wait for the next kind of signal. This sort of describes to me quite often that we're in a difficult market. You know, we're sort of going to sell off, we're going to buy up, we're going to sell off, we're going to buy up, and it's just not really my thing.
Yeah, look, sometimes it becomes very, very frustrating if you don't have what you suggested before. If you don't have a "I'm wrong" point, you can just stay in trades way too long.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very good idea to have "I'm wrong here" point.
Yeah.
And be prepared to close.
Yeah, be prepared to close at a bit of a loss, and you know, not allow it to hit stop loss. I'm not really interested in using the stop loss. To me is an emergency. You know, it's not an absolute level that I've got to let the trade kind of run to that particular point. I much prefer to just eyeball the chart and see what it's suggesting. The problem with this is that that now we've kind of gone through the level. The next thing that can happen is that we come down, test this area, and bounce to the upside.
That's my false break trade, right?
That's your false break. Yeah, exactly. So there may well be an upside, or this is a false break and we come down and then we retest. That wouldn't be too bad. You know, if it does that, then wouldn't be too bad to potentially sort of take a trade on there. But it looks like we're a little bit indecisive this morning, and I'm not interested in really probably playing this at this stage.
Fair shout, mate. Fair shout. I'll show you that anomaly that I've got in these charts at the moment.
Yeah, do it.
Which is a bit of a bugbear, to be fair. And this is the two most important pairs for me. That's the dollar index, right?
Yeah.
Where I've got a break of resistance. And we called this last week, where we said 104.40, this area here, was going to be an interesting point for the dollar index. Whether it goes through, whether it bounces off it, didn't know at the time, obviously, but it certainly was a sell zone. What drove this? Have you got any idea? That was on Tuesday. Something happened on Tuesday from a fundamental point of view or a news point of view?
Yeah, I think it was the Jolts openings. I'll double check, mate, but I think it was the Jolts openings. Let me see.
Whatever it was dramatic.
Tuesday 29th. Job openings was down. Much weaker print on the jobs openings. And I guess this is the thing, you know, what we're looking at with all this stuff is that is the labor market and inflation. And the labor market is really the kind of last piece of the puzzle for the Fed. So because inflation is sort of like starting to ease, but we do see some labor market weakness, then that would kind of push us towards the possibility of lower price points and some disinflation because people are not able to buy so many goods and services. It creates a huge problem, because I think some of the savings accounts are just getting just worn away as kind of people sort of try and fight and keep some sort of standard of living and just get through to the next phase. But it would cause a huge problem. No savings, no job. That's a big issue. But it wasn't a huge reduction, but it was enough of a reduction in jobs openings to suggest that there was some more cooling in the economy.
Yeah, here's the thing with this, and Paul P, you're spot on, mate, 100%. What I can see is this, and I actually like this. So I've really got a conflict here. Dollar index is saying exactly right, Paul P. We've got a break, we've got a resistance hit, come back under the support, and now we're looking to retest it. If that were to retest that area, I would be more than happy to put a short underneath here. Probably have to put my stop loss above the double top though. But here's the other thing. This looks very much like an inverted head and shoulders to me. It's a massive one.
Yeah.
But this is a buy zone, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But if you've got to get back through that level, and that's going to be tough. That's really going to be tough. Bigger picture, of course, is we are now well above this channel, which is very, very strong. And this rectangle here, like I've been talking about for months and months and months, suggests that we're going back to here with the dollar.
Yeah.
But if you have a look at this chart on the daily, suggesting that false break, now have a look at this chart on the euro, suggesting exactly the same thing. Hang on, I'll get rid of that because it doesn't belong there. Which is a false break also, naturally going in the opposite direction. And this is the line in the sand. So buy above here on euro dollar, if, of course, this closes as is tomorrow or tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? And this looks to be going in the right direction because of this channel. So this looks to be going in the right direction for that trade, whereas the dollar index looks to be going in the wrong direction for me for that trade. That's where I'm confused. I've got exactly the same chart pattern. That's a false break, suggesting that we go short here. And on the euro, I've got exactly the same pattern suggesting that we go long, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those, isn't it, mate, where if you're able, with experience to kind of look at a chart and say there's enough confusion to suggest that that I shouldn't be doing anything here. That's actually a really useful tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not that you don't understand the market, but you don't understand the current market, and the current market, is one of those particular areas where you will know from experience it's very difficult to make money. In actual fact, you end up probably losing money, which is why, again, I prefer to close positions. Just say I don't get it. It's not doing kind of what looks obvious to me, I suppose. And if it's not doing what's obvious, then it becomes sort of, you almost enter into a different realm of randomness. We know that there's a huge slice of randomness and unpredictability in the market, but you almost enter another kind of realm where you're guessing even further. I guess it's a bit like if you've got a pet and you walk through the door and every day it wags its tail, but one day it doesn't. You kind of you might know that animal very, very well, but that kind of different behavior would suggest that you need to potentially approach it differently. And I guess that's a bit like that with the market. With stuff like this, I just think the approach has to be different. And the only other approach I know to be safe, to be different, is just to leave it go, let it go, and let it sort of come back into play again.
Yeah, look, this is screaming at me, go long euro dollar. It really is tomorrow. But this thing on so that's oil, this thing on the dollar index, which is suggesting exactly the same thing if I look at it in that context. But if I look at it in the other context of I've got inverted head and shoulders and I'm back inside this range and I'm headed towards the top, that's the conflict.
Yeah.
And for that reason, exactly as you say, I will probably do absolutely nothing and wait until it tells me which is right. Is it the bigger picture or is it the short term? Don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Sadly, today, our edge has already gone on euro dollar, where had you been alert enough and in front of the charts, you may well have found a way to trade that, but I couldn't. There's just no way I can trade that. Certainly not in the last half hour. So that's a shame. And what I'm referring to, if you don't know, is the daily pivot test, guys. I'm sure most of you in the room would know that. But yeah, tomorrow, that really does look like a long. But like I said, it's Friday. I won't have to think about it. I won't be trading, which is cool for me. And then, of course, we'll come back on Mondays and I'll say, see what happened? Told you.
Yeah.
Told you it was going.
Yeah.
No, I won't do that. I think that's awful when that happens. People say that.
Yes, it
Told
is
you.
awful, isn't it? Yeah, it is awful, and because we kind of don't have this crystal ball. There's got to be a point where you just kind of follow your methodology. I mean, that's always the comfortable point, isn't it? That you just follow a methodology in the end and just sort of like say, this is what I know it helps me sleep at night. Really, when it comes down to it, might not help you make money, but it help you sleep at night, because this has to be relatively stress free. And holding on to positions that just don't make sense, just doesn't make sense. It's just not going to help your life balance, really.
Look, I think both you and I and everyone who's ever sat in front of a chart and had money involved has been through that stress process, and
Yeah.
that's how we know that that's not the way we want to do it. So you've got to find that sweet spot where, as you say, it becomes automatic without stressing. It takes a while. It really does take a while to get there.
It does. Yeah, it does. It does, because you're going to have a few days where you're either not making any money or you're going to have to take a small loss. But it is really sort of remembering that this is a long-term game and a long-term position. The end of the month, I guess, matters somewhat. The end of the year matters even more. But ultimately, it's about sticking in there and having stability. Because if you've got that, you will kind of like move to the next phase. I suppose so many people with trading kind of get lost. In every kind of stage. The ones that jump to the next ones are really the ones that stuck around. But you can't stick around if you're burning your cash through some just bad decisions. And I guess it's just something that you have to be able to learn. And as you're saying, it's not easy, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just shut everything down and go somewhere else and just have some thinking time.
I always say when I'm teaching people my method, the very best thing you can do is learn how not to lose.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you're not going to lose, right? You're going to lose trades. That's as sure as God made little green apples. That will happen. But you can eliminate a whole bunch of losses simply by following a couple of rules. And the most basic of those rules is don't trade short at support and don't trade long at resistance.
Yeah.
Yet I see people day in, day out doing exactly that. And I go, why?
Yeah.
You know that's not right. And these are seasoned traders I've seen do that too. And sometimes you get the break or the continuation, but more often than not, it'll hit that resistance and do exactly what resistance does. It'll turn it straight back around.
Yeah, it plays terrible tricks with us when we're trading, doesn't it? The what we see and all that, which is why actually it's really good to have a break, because if you, particularly after you've lost a trade, you've got to be able to put it behind you and let it go. So when you come back to the charts, you've got you're looking at it with new, fresh analysis. You're not looking at it just because you think I've got to get that money back. It's kind of like that part has to be irrelevant in the end. And the only reason that you're going to be thinking I've got to get that money back is because you've probably put too much money on in the first place. And
speaking about chasing money, did I ever tell you the story about my trotter?
No.
The horse, the trotting horses.
No, yeah.
Well, I used to bet money on horses, all the slow ones. Right.
Yeah.
And we used to go to rugby league grand final and I was like 19 or something. And we used to go to the rugby league grand final, which is in Sydney, and I lived about 3 hours away from there. So we used to catch the train down. I won't tell you what we did on the train, but when we got to Sydney, it was on the Friday night, and they always have a pre-grand final trot meeting. at a place called Harold Park. So I've got a pocket full of money, and I think we got to about race 3 or 4 of 9 races. I think were on the program that night, and I'm going along okay. Haven't won much, had a few beers and a couple of hot dogs or whatever, and then started to lose money. So by the time we got to race 9, I've got $200 left in my pocket, and out of, I don't know, maybe $700 or $800 I had in my pocket. So I thought, oh, this thing in the last race, this can't lose. So I'm going to put, so I put the whole 200 in, right? Yeah, that's the last money I had for the whole weekend. And this is Friday night. So we get to the final lap, and you know what? You've seen trotting races, right? How they go around the circle and they've got a fence and all that sort of stuff that keeps them into the winning post, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's 10 horses in the race, and my horse, and I don't know if you know anything about pacing, but it's one off the fence and one back, which is the perfect place for a horse to be in a trot race. So coming around the final turn for the last time, winning post is 300 metres away. So he pulls it out, and it's coming home like you wouldn't believe it. It's just going 3 to their 1, and it's going to win by 100 metres in the last 300. It got to the lead, and it got in about 5 to 10 metres in front. It did a left turn and jumped the fence and took all my money with it. The dirty, rotten thing.
Yeah, well, that's
That's what happens when you chase money.
Yeah.
Everything bad can happen.
Yeah,
So,
well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? That in the end, there's no such thing as a sure thing. Doesn't matter how fast that horse is. If it does something random, which animals do, and we are those, then unpredictability. You're never really going to get anywhere with that stuff.
With trotters, it's mainly the person that's holding the reins. He just go whoop like that. Oh, shouldn't have pulled that rein. He went left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, didn't have a go. I had to borrow money to get home and all the rest of it. It's horrible.
Yeah. That's
but I learned it, and that was one of my lessons in how not to lose. Don't chase.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly it, mate. That's exactly it. It's the don't chasing thing. And when because actually, I could quite easily find another trade today in the FTSE, and I might sort of look at what's going on with the numbers with the ECB and the CPI data, but I might well just leave this market alone now, and come back tomorrow, 1st of September tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah,
you bet.
Come back tomorrow and see what's on offer. But I think that the main thing is, we always sort of say it, and people have read it, a million times over. Cut the losers fast and let the winners run. Well, letting the winners run can be quite tricky for people. That's the thing I find most difficult, actually. But cutting losers fast, I'm pretty good at that. So at least half the methodology and half the battle's done. Not getting married to a position, if it doesn't do what you think it's going to do, I think that's okay, because oftentimes they'll do exactly what you think they're going to do, and they're the ones that you want to stay in, and they're the ones that you should be able to stay in, because it is kind of flowing. And you only need the 2 points, in my opinion. Does it do what it should do at the start, and then you can just leave the target. If it does what it says it's going to do, if it does what it should do at the start, normally it will hit the target. If it doesn't, then it's time to cut straight out and use that. Don't use that emergency position of the stop loss. That's only there for an emergency, in my opinion, anyway.
That's a good point. I've never really looked at it like that. I like that.
Yeah, because it's it's the kind of final. It's the one that if something really crazy happens and the market just takes off, you're okay. But if you've got time to be able to kind of fix it up a little bit, usually I would prefer to fix it up. What I've found with the way I trade is that I tend to get a result almost immediately. Because if you're taking limit order trades, if you're trying to sort of like trade at at the high end of a structure, then you should be trying to pick the turning point. So if you haven't picked the turning point, from what I've seen, if I haven't picked the turning point, then it could go either way. But the ones that work out best for me are the ones where I'm pretty close to pick perfect. So if it doesn't do that, then I'm not interested.
Yeah, something else is happening.
Yeah.
And which goes back to the point. You need to train yourself, I think, to know where you're wrong.
Yes.
And if you know where you're wrong, you can save a whole bunch of cash by knowing that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go and back a racehorse. No, I don't. Just kidding. There's a trotter in the last at Harold Park, and that's tomorrow night. Oh my God! Thank God I got over that when I was 21.
Yeah.
That's
not,
what now, 46 years ago.
Baptism of fire, though, mate, is it, in a way? I know, sort of, gambling is no way to make money, but it's quite good to go through the gambling situation in some respects, because then you realise what it is. You realise that nobody wins that stuff. You can't win gambling in the end. In
retrospect, yes, it's good. At the time, oh my God.
Yeah.
The anguish was just horrible.
Yeah. I mean, even the professional ones, they've got a system. That's why they tend to do well. They've got a system, and you've got to have that, haven't you? I think that's a really good lesson in some respects. A life lesson rather than a trading lesson per se.
Taught me, absolutely. I've been running away from that moment ever since.
Yeah.
Thank God I got away from it.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of getting away, we might do that. There's probably no stop loss. That's right, Paul P. There are no stop losses on racehorses. Once you're on, you're on. No. That's it. And that little bugger sitting on top of them, man, I know a few rogues.
Well,
I'll get into trouble again.
The problem is with racehorses, I suppose you could cut it out during the race now. They've got sort of, in race stuff, but you just don't know what's going to happen right to the end.
Really? You can cash out?
You can cash out. I mean, you take a big reduction, but you can cash out.
Oh, okay.
It's a bit pointless. It's the reduction's so steep that it's a bit pointless. But I mean, would you be looking at a racehorse and would you be able to envisage, okay, it needs to be doing this at this particular point? If it's not doing that, then it never wins. I suppose you could really analyze it, very, very, very deeply about, its winning races. But I don't know. I guess they do that.
I don't want to know, mate. Don't care. They can do what they like.
Probably easy with dogs. Pretty easy with dogs, if the dog you're backing gets to the first turn first, and that's where it tends to win from, no problem, you stick with it. But otherwise, it might be worth sort of cutting out and cashing out if it doesn't.
Harold Park's still there. Doesn't surprise me at all, Harry. There's some money being dropped there over the years, I can tell you. And well, with greyhounds, man, there's another one. I used to back them too.
Yeah.
but not necessarily. Actually, they were all right sometimes. But I can tell you some stories about greyhounds, poor damn things. There's a trainer when they're loading them into the boxes, right?
Yeah.
If they didn't want the dog to win, those break its toe.
Yeah.
It's not going to win with a broken toe. There's all sorts of horrible things.
I used to really like greyhound racing as a kind of a night out until I found out some of the stuff, and I haven't been back for, I don't know, decades now. I just I can't support that.
No, I'm pretty much on the animal side these days. They shouldn't be doing that. But and they'll tell you that horses are bred to, they love to run. Yeah, who asked them?
Yeah,
I'm not getting into that. The horse whisperers. Yeah. All right, let's get out of here before I get into trouble.
All right, buddy. No worries at all. Right. Thank you, everybody, for turning up. Thanks, of course, for being my trading buddy, mate. I will see you on Monday, and we'll see if we got an easier market to wrestle with.
Yeah. All right, mate. Happy days. Going into September could well be the case. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye for now. Hooroo.